Finding something without knowing where to look is not easy, and if it is not even certain that the thing exists, it becomes even more complicated. Knowing it well, Michael Brown and Konstantin Batygin, two astronomers rather convinced that in the extreme periphery of our solar system is orbiting, never observed by anyone, a planet at least twice the size of Earth. For years, the two diehards argued that the existence of this ninth planet would help to explain the strange similarities in the orbits of some objects that orbit in the most remote part of our solar system. So far, these are only theories and models of celestial dynamics, discussed by an astronomical consensus divided so far equally between enthusiasm and skepticism. So that for a long time are alternating studies in favor and studies that instead want to demonstrate the inconsistency of the evidence. The most recent one, published a year ago, believes, for example, that the ambitious hypothesis of Brown and Batygin is based on the misunderstanding of a trivial statistical error. Let's see how things are going together. Keep watching. Planet 9 existence? Something's moving. Do you ever get the feeling of being followed online? Do you know the feeling that you think you are being listened to over the phone? We present to you NordVPN, #1 choice for security. NordVPN provides the most transparent VPN online. It changes your IP address and channels your traffic through an encrypted tunnel, making you fully anonymous. NordVPN is available for all platforms: Windows, macOS, Android, Linux, iOS, and many more. Our payment methods include credit cards, PayPal, gift cards, and cryptocurrencies. Strengths: stronger data protection, unlimited access to all kinds of content. Change your VPN location and watch your favorite shows anywhere in the world. A great example is Peaky Blinders' new season, available only in the UK and BBC Player. Insane streaming and file sharing speed. Remove ads and saves mobile data. A brand new feature to desktop apps, threat protection. And it's going to take your digital security to the next level. Once you enable it on your NordVPN app, threat protection will guard your device against malicious websites, malware, trackers, and intrusive ads, even if you're not connected to a VPN server at the time. That's right, when you switch it on, it will stay on regardless of your VPN connection. It blocks dangerous websites that might potentially host malware, even if you click on a dangerous link by accident. It also scans every file you download, and it deletes the infected ones. We have an insane offer for our insane curiosity viewers. Get the exclusive NordVPN deal here, nordvpn.com/curiosity. Risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee, 24/7 live chat customer support. Make your VPN experience truly your own. Stay safe and do not let anyone intrude on your privacy. On February 18, 1930, the world became aware of the discovery of what, at that time, was considered the ninth planet of the solar system. Searched for a long time by the young Clyde Tombaugh and finally found on the photographic plates impressed by the fire of the 13-inch astrograph of the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. After that momentous discovery, for a long time, no one looked for other objects orbiting beyond those remote distances. After all, almost no one believed that there was something else to find, since the planet found by Clyde Tombaugh seemed to account in the best way of the alleged irregularities found in the movement of Uranus and Neptune. Over the years, it became increasingly clear that Pluto was not at all the massive planet that was believed to be, and began to get the idea that beyond the 40 astronomical units, the solar system hides much more than we could see. In 1992, a team of researchers led by American astronomer Chad Trujillo announced the finding of the first trans-Neptunian asteroid, establishing the presence of a second asteroidal belt stretching 15 times farther than the one now known between Mars and Jupiter. A region that extends beyond Pluto for billions of kilometers, and that has taken the name Kuiper Belt in honor of Gerard Kuiper, the Dutch astronomer who in the 50s had theorized the existence. The observations and discoveries that followed over the years led astronomers to estimate that the huge reservoir of icy worlds could contain hundreds of thousands of objects with dimensions of hundreds of kilometers. So Pluto was no exception. There was a lot more going on out there at the edge of our solar system. All you had to do was look. To take up the challenge in the early years of this century was Caltech's Michael Brown, who in a short time discovered that in the area, also very large objects such as quasar, Sedna, Orcus, Makemake, Haumea, Gong Gong, all planetoids with a diameter between 1,000 and 2,000 kilometers. A string of successes culminated in 2003 with the discovery of Eris, a planet of the same size as Pluto. Paradoxically, it was precisely this crowning of planets to decree in 2006 the downgrading of Pluto and Eris to the rank of Dwarf Planet. The decision, as you undoubtedly remember, was taken after a turbulent debate that surprisingly saw the same Brown in the forefront in claiming the need to refine the concept of planet, thus contributing to downgrade not only Pluto but also Eris. Since 2006, little else has been discovered in the Kuiper Belt. Lots of objects with diameters around hundreds of kilometers, but no other of semi-planetary size. The work of astronomers thus began to move towards a statistical treatment of the different populations of objects in the Kuiper Belt. Until on January 20th, 2016, Brown, along with one of his postdoc students, Konstantin, presented a paper entitled Evidence for a Distant Giant Planet in the Solar System in the pages of the Astronomical Journal. Batygin and Brown examined the orbital data of Sedna and a small group of 5 other objects, observing that the primary axes of their orbits are practically parallel, and more critically, that the orbits all have a very similar inclination. The bodies in the Kuiper Belt, including Pluto, are all trans-Neptunian objects, with average distances from the Sun between 30 and 55 astronomical units. But the 6 objects studied by Batygin and Brown do not belong to the Kuiper Belt. They are classified as ETNO, extreme trans-Neptunian objects, because they have extremely elongated orbits. Even at perihelion, they are more than 30 astronomical units away from the Sun, and at aphelion, they can reach, like Sedna, distances close to 1,000 astronomical units. 1 astronomical unit is equivalent to about 150 million kilometers and represents the average distance of the Earth from the Sun. Studying the orbits of these 6 ETNOs, Batygin and Brown noticed something strange. A feature of their orbits, called the perihelion argument, basically the angular orientation of the major semi-axis of the orbit, was similar in all 6 bodies. Also very similar was the inclination of their orbital plane. In short, there was something, a force, that seemed to act on the orbits of the 6 ETNOs, orienting and stretching them all in the same way. The 6 bodies, by the way, had been discovered by 6 different telescopes during as many different surveys, so it was to discard the hypothesis that their grouping and orbiting around the Sun depended on a distortion due to the mode of observation. The 2 astronomers calculated that there was only a 0.007% probability that orbital disposition was casual, and after having concluded a series of simulations based on different types of gravitational interactions, they were convinced that the most probable cause of the orbital similarity of the 6 ETNOs could only be the gravitational attraction exerted on those bodies by a 9th planet of the solar system very far from the Sun. Their simulations indicated that a planet with a mass equal to about 10 Earth masses was moving along a very elongated orbit, distant on average 700 AU, but with a perihelion of 200 AU and an aphelion of 1200 AU. Located in an elliptical orbit with an eccentricity of about 0.6, the semi-major axis of 700 astronomical units, perihelion, and aphelion respectively at 200 and 1200 astronomical units from the Sun, and perihelion argument opposite of 180 degrees to that of the 6 ETNOs, could explain very well the orbital confinement of those 6 planets. After the publication of the study, debates flourished on the existence of the hypothetical Planet 9, but also intensified its research. A search conducted, however, almost blindly. If this distant and cold body really existed, it would have an apparent magnitude greater than 22, which means that we should try to perceive the movement of a bright dot at least 600 times dimmer than Pluto. Over the years, thanks to increasingly powerful and precise telescopes, astronomers have become quite adept at looking for particular categories of celestial bodies. You indicate the features you want to the instruments to exclude everything else from the field of view and then evaluate the results. In a way, though, it's like trolling, whereas in the case of the 9th planet, you need a spear gun. Telescopes suitable and powerful enough for the purpose are not many and are in high demand by researchers. Finding vacancies is difficult, and astronomers are often reduced to having only a couple of nights a year to pursue their observations. In 2019, an additional study by Brown and Batygin increased the number of ETNOs with apparently aligned orbits to 14, which allowed the authors to refine their assessments of the characteristics of the hypothetical Planet 9. The average distance of 400 to 500 AU from the Sun, the distance at the perihelion of 280 AU, distance at aphelion of 650 AU, diameter of 25,000 kilometers, mass 5 times that of the Earth, orbit inclination of 20 degrees. Hang on a sec, guys, before we continue. Be sure to join the Insane Curiosity channel. Click on the bell. You will help us to make products of even higher quality. Although the evidence brought by Batygin and Brown seems quite convincing, no one really knows if Planet 9 exists or not. And until we find out through direct observation, its existence will not be scientifically confirmed. But where could it be right now? For now, no one really knows, although studies done so far provide a rough idea of its motion in the sky and its brightness. The current efforts of scientists are focused on reducing the area of research. For example, new simulations of Batygin and Brown have restricted the possible location of Planet 9 to an area of about 600 square degrees. Remember that the surface of the entire celestial sphere is about 40,000 degrees. Excluding the areas of the sky already monitored by automated surveys such as Pan-STARRS and WISE, the most reasonable conclusion is that Planet 9 could be close to its orbital aphelion at about 600 AU. Statistically, in fact, an object orbiting a star spends much more time near its aphelion, where its velocity is lower. Its magnitude would then be a plus 22, a brightness within the reach of any professional telescope, but unfortunately in the direction of the center of the Milky Way. And if this rough prediction is true, it could be extremely complicated to discover Planet 9 in front of the incredibly dense star fields near the center of our galaxy. In short, between ups and downs, the scientific debate on the existence of the ninth planet continues. A debate sometimes made of very polemical attacks, rekindled a year ago by new research published under the title "No Evidence for Orbital Clustering in the Extreme Trans-Neptunian Objects." According to the authors of the study led by Kevin Napier of the University of Michigan, there would be nothing so strange in the orbits of the 14 ETNOs mentioned by Brown and Batygin, and their similarity could just be the result of a statistical accident. Their thesis is that since these objects, in addition to being few in number, are small and faint, very dark, and difficult to spot except on rare, fortuitous occasions, their apparent densification in a particular region of the sky could be a function of the characteristics of the telescope survey that detected them, rather than the presence of a large attractor. It cannot be ruled out that their distribution is actually uniform across the celestial vault, which would rule out the need to bring up the existence of a perturbating planet. Of course, Brown and Batygin do not agree, and their polemic vein in their reply can be seen in Batagin's own words. "I'm still quite optimistic about Planet 9. If you see a bunch of bears to the east, you might think there was a bear cave there. But Napier is saying the bears are all around us because we haven't checked everywhere. That logical jump is not one you can make." Untangling this problem will require further observations that lead to knowledge of an increasing number of trans-Neptunian objects to determine once and for all whether or not the accumulation that led to the hypothesis of Planet 9 is there. The ninth planet will continue to keep astronomers busy for a long time to come, but new data to settle their diatribe could arrive within a few years. Because the planet is expected to be moving in the northern celestial hemisphere, the primary search is now being concluded with the Subaru telescope at Mauna Kea, Hawaii, which has both an aperture large enough to see faint objects and a wide field of view to shorten the search time. Then in Chile, construction is underway on the Vera Rubin Observatory, equipped with a powerful telescope, large synoptic survey telescope, that will conduct observational campaigns to photograph the night sky of the southern hemisphere. It will allow precise mapping of objects in the Kuiper Belt and will likely lead to the discovery of many more trans-Neptunian objects. U.S. astronomer Vera Rubin, after whom the new telescope is named, was a pioneer in the study of galaxy rotation and in defining dark matter, the part that is visible to us and is thought to occupy about 85% of the universe. Commenting on the complexity of her studies, she once said, "Many mysteries of the universe are still hidden from us. Their discovery awaits the adventurous scientists of the future. The ninth planet is certainly one of these mysteries."